It is 13 hours 58 in Guyana. It is time for the late edition of the COVID-19 and Elections Watch. At the helm of this afternoon's program, as usual, Dr. Yog Mahadeo alongside senior journalist of Kaito News, Leonard Gildarie. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, dear everybody. I want to say a good day to you, everybody, right across this good nation of ours on this very beautiful day. And of course, let's get right into it. Our apologies for this late start. Our phone lines in the area in Georgetown, around this area in Charleston, is down. So we had to ensure that we have an alternative number during our call-in program. And so, good afternoon to you, Yog Mahadeo, all across the coast. To our people, wherever you are overseas, we want to say good day to you, and may you continue to be as happy as I am, and as Dr. Yog Mahadeo, as he is. As he's always said, he's an eternal optimist, and so it's catching on. Yog, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you, sir. Nice, wonderful day, and yes, our apologies for the late start to everyone, but I'm well. And I know that Joshua and Kevin are both doing well, but Leonard, Joshua and Kevin both owe our viewers and listeners some means upon which they can make up for this lapse. Somebody got to take the blame, right?
No, this thing is very, very easy, Yog. I got this all figured out, and let me tell you what's going to happen. There's some new program app that came out. I think it's very popular among the youngsters. I think even big people doing it now. We call TikTok. So Yog and Gildarie is going to oversee Kevin Smith as well as Joshua, and there's a new gentleman here in the studio by the name of Raj, all the way from India. They have decided to apologize to the people of Guyana that they are going to do a jig or a dance or whatever it is. I think Raj says that he knows the special dance. Was it kata or something like that, Yog? So I think we're going to be very happy people, and whenever that happens, we're going to make sure that we show it to the people. So there is going to be a new number for you guys to call in when we open the lines, until we could get those lines that has been thrown, that has been cut, has been damaged. Some cables damaged, I'm being told, and GT&T is trying to fix that. But there's a new number that we have on screen. But let me call that out for you. Take note: 225-8463. 225-846. Sorry, 65. 65, right? 225-8465, and you could also WhatsApp or text us on 622-222. So Yog, I want to say good afternoon once again. Welcome to the special edition of the Elections Watch, COVID-19 Watch. And let me tell you why today is a significant day. Today is significant because of one very big reason, and it's not something to be proud about. It's 100 days. 100 days since we would have had elections in Guyana. And guess what? We seem to be close, a little closer to next week. Tuesday is the latest day in which a declaration has to be made. This morning, the opposition leader, Mahadeo, as well as the presidential candidate of the People's Progressive Party, Civic, Dr. Irfan Ali, along with Mark Phillips, his prime ministerial candidate, they went to the police commissioner, and I think you have some details just to that, Yog. But one thing Mahadeo said to the media in his engagement to them afterwards at Ivlevi there is that as far as we're concerned, Irfan Ali is the president-elect of Guyana, and that much has been told. So it's only a matter of formality for GCOM to go ahead and make the declarations. The figures are saying that very clearly. So let's get right down into it. And today, before I hand it over to you, Yog, we have some sad news that one of our guests a few weeks back, Dr. Randy Dipu, I think it is. He's a lawyer, and he's also, I think, the Consular General for Trinidad and Tobago, a Guyanese lawyer who would have been living in Trinidad for years. And he made his name recently in Guyana. Who didn't know him, like myself, knew him because he went and stood in front of the U.S. Embassy in Guyana at Kingston there, and he would have did a petition against the coalition government. He's died, I understand. He fell sick. And so we, in keeping with what we stand for at this radio station here, Kaito Radio, we of course would from time to time recognize people in Guyana who would have stood up for something or the other. So condolences to his family and friends and everybody that knows him. He's very well known in the political circles of Guyana, somebody who works behind the scenes, getting things done and so on. So condolences there. But over to you, Yog. This morning, a very critical meeting there at Ivlery with the Commissioner of Police by the opposition, the People's Progressive Party, Civic, and its leadership with the Commissioner of Police. What has come out of that, Yog, based on what we've seen on the reports?
Well, there are a number of things. Mr. Ali, President-elect Ali, would have reported to the nation in the interview there that um, they sought to meet with the Commissioner of Police for particularly the security of state assets. So there seems to be a concern that the police may need to step up its act in terms of securing state assets. One would recall that in 2015, the APNU AFC would have called on police to ensure that state assets and so forth are being secure. And I see that exact thing is happening now. So that was one of the things. And I think that according to what President-elect Ali would have announced or shared with the media, the police assured them that they will be taking the necessary steps to ensure the protection of state assets. Now, we know that a lot of persons this is a troublesome time, and I want to ensure that we all say this very clearly and carefully, that, whatever assets there are, they don't belong to anyone, and the same, the same fortitude and the same vigilance which we all clamored in 2015 when there was a change in government for these assets to be secured, then, equal, if not more, scrutiny needs to be in place to ensure that everything is protected. Also, Leonard, remember that there is still some people who are holding on and continue to change the narrative. Now we seem to have a new narrative. The children may have voted in these elections. I don't know who's coming up with these things. But, over and over, the narrative is changing. I compliment Kaiser News for that very poignant cartoon that you guys had over the weekend to show that the goal itself seems to be shifting every day. So while the narrative is changing and persons are taking the Kool-Aid, they obviously, with our disagreements being so intense, one has to be concerned about our livelihood and our assets. So I don't find that strange. With regards to the other part that you mentioned there, yes, Mr. Jagdeo has shared to the nation and has had everybody run to, Hill Law Books to see what is 177.2b and what is this about. And yes, it does say that, the presidential candidate shall be deemed to be elected president. The word is deemed. Let me read the full part to you. Where there are two or more presidential candidates, if more votes are cast in favor of the list in which a person is designated as presidential candidate than in favor of any other list, that presidential candidate shall be deemed to be elected as president and shall be so declared by the chairman of the Elections Commission, acting only in accordance with the advice of the Chief Elections Officer, after such advice has been tendered to the Elections Commission at a duly summoned meeting. But the words there are very clear. The lawyers would want to argue on this notion of mandatory or directory, whether this thing is saying you're mandated to do this or it's saying you should do this. And maybe that's a discussion we'll have tonight in Room 592, Leonard.
Thank you very much there, Yog. And so like what we've always done in this program, Yog, we don't take things at face value. We don't listen to one side and try to get that. We always try to get the other side. So I'm going to take off my hat here now and ask you the question from the other side of the room, which is it correct to call the Dr. Irfan Ali the president-elect of Guyana?
I would say that, look, all of the media houses, every independent authority or independent organization would have said that the votes cast show that the PPP Civic has won these elections, whereas Granger and his team has not conceded, and whereas GCOM still has to make the declaration declaration. In every other country, by now you would have been doing two things. One is that the president-elect would have been so titled elect, president-elect, and two, security forces needs to be detailed to the gentleman. He has now earned the title of president-elect. Upon swearing in, he becomes the president, and he needs to be accorded with such security and other state protection that might have been necessary. Now, he said this morning he is not scared, and nobody is scared. I mean, in Guyana, I don't know for heaven's sake why we have such great security details following like servants and so forth to these public officers, but it is what it is.
And do we know if the Commissioner of Police says, yes, I do believe that you need security at this point in time? Because that in itself would be a recognition that he is indeed the president-elect.
Well, they did not. That was not the objective of their meeting at all. Based on what I've been told, that didn't even come up, and so it was just a question that has emerged thereafter. When the press questioned the opposition leader as to the status of Jagdev, he said, look at 177 2B. So that was not the purpose of the meeting with the police commissioner at all.
All right. So at this point in time, I think what Jagdev has made it very clear. You would recall last week that issue, that very big issue of the commissioner, that list that the commissioner would have sent, confirming that these people were out of the country. This issue was not raised this morning, and for somebody who's not familiar with that story, the opposition, I think GCOM would have written. GCOM would have written the Commissioner of Police and says, look, this is a list of persons that the coalition is saying that was out of the country, but yet they voted. We have indications of that. I think it was that the Commissioner of Police subsequently would have answered and says 172 names. 172 names would have been out of this country, and several persons came forward. So Jagdev said this morning, as the opposition leader, that this issue was not raised with the commissioner because they had bigger fish to fry. I'm just using some words off my own there. We had other more important things to talk about, including what you would have said there, the protection of our assets in this country in the meantime, while there's a transitionary phase is happening. And so, Yog, very important. We go straight into the headlines of Kiteshore News today. Kiteshore News, it's Wednesday, June the 10th. And it's important that we look at the dates. And we go straight to the top headline. Region 4 results certified. Coalition refused to sign on. The Region 4 was the big region. The District 4, as known to the Guyana Elections Commission, is the area that includes Georgetown and the East Coast and the East Bank. And that was the one that ran us into so many problems after those very controversial and some people would say fraudulent declarations by claimant Mingo, the returning officer for District 4, Region 4. And it was certified of the recount. The Region 4 results were certified, and the coalition did not sign on to that. However, you would have made it very clear, Yog, and others are saying that it's immaterial, it does not have it's not important that anybody sign on to it. It's a declaration, it's for informational purposes, it's part of the procedures of the Guyana Elections Commission leading towards the swearing-in actually by the Chancellor eventually, rather. So very important. And then there's this headline at the top there, stop attacking GCOM chair, Jagdev urges all, stop attacking GCOM chair. And you and I know, Yog, I'm being told that since this recount has begun, this chair lady, Justice Retired Claudette Singh, has not missed a day of work. She was in there every single day from morning till night until it's finished, and until the process would have been completed for the day. And here he is coming out in defense of the GCOM chair. Smart politics, maybe. So we could probably have a discussion on that. But I think at this point in time, we need the political parties. I'm seeing the opposition not doing anything that could inflame a situation, because we know on the other side of it, there's the coalition supporters who've been told very, very clearly that they have won. There's going to be a lot of disappointments. There's going to be hard feelings, there's going to be tears. However, we have to deal. It's a democracy. The people have spoken, and the system has. All parties would have agreed to have a recount, and the recount figures have come out. Everybody is saying that the recount seems to be holding up to scrutiny. When it comes down to elections, they March 2nd, it's a done deal. It was above board, it was transparent. Everybody that was here, I think it's several hundred observers from overseas, including the EU, the Carter Center, the Commonwealth, CARICOM, and some other places too. They were here, and they're saying based on what we saw, we found no evidence or anything that should raise our concerns, and therefore the elections day is not in question. There is a recount. Everybody agreed to the recount. So where are we right now? On June the 13th, I think it is, based on what we're seeing, is the last day that the chief elections officer would have to take these results for not only on Region 4, District 4, but the 9 other regions, and give it in a report to the Guyana Elections Commission, the 6 commissioners, as well as the chair, for them to look at and prepare, presume, a report or a memorandum or whatever to the Chancellor, paving the way for a president to be sworn in. And what we could make some conclusions here. The president-elect, based on the figures that we see coming out, is Dr. Irfan Ali of the People's Progressive Party. And if you're not joining us and not familiar, I think all Guyana is familiar. In 2015, the People's Progressive Party, Civic, would have lost the elections after 23 years in government. Coalition came into to play. They were sworn in. David Granger. I think Yog, today is a significant day too. I think it was 5 years back that Parliament convened, the next Parliament under the David Granger administration would have convened. I do happen to have some pictures for it, so it's momentous, some moments in time that we would capture there. But over to you, Yog. Over to you with regards to what you see and maybe some comments.
Well, a couple of things that I want to quickly mention. One is that undoubtedly, everybody has seen there is no one, whether it's Lowenfield or anyone, that can change these recount numbers. Now, you raise an interesting point that APNO AFC did not sign the certificate of tabulation, and it is true, it is insignificant, and here is how and why. The SORs themselves were all signed. So the basis of the tabulation would have been signed. Now, the other thing that we have to look at in terms of what Lowenfield has to do now, Lowenfield's job is to basically summarize these things. Now, this nation has to be aware of a couple of things. The speed with which Lowenfield acted on March 13th to get his report done and get it ready for the commission to look at. Because people must remember he did prepare a report following and incorporating Mingo's fraudulent numbers then. Talking about Mr. Mingo, as Kaiju News would have reported, the Mingo's fraud case is in front of the courts, and tomorrow, I believe, is that hearing where the Chief Justice will be listening to this case by Zoom. One has to remember that Mingo would have been accused of failing to comply with Section 84.1 of the Representation of the People Act. And of course, he's been accused of refusing to ascertain the votes recorded in favor of the various list of candidates. Now, it's very, very clear. The evidence that the recount produced, Leonard, nobody can erase it. The evidence of the numbers of ballots, cast within a box, cast within a polling booth or a polling station, that proved Mingo's, manipulation of the numbers. It cannot be disproved. It cannot be erased. The evidence is there. It is written. What would be of interest is the arguments before the court on the finer points of law. And I would be looking forward to see what would Mingo's defense attorneys be pleading to Representative Madam Chief Justice Representative.
Do we expect, Yoga, that tomorrow in the High Court for this hearing here, that Clement Mingo is going to be there, or is he going to be there appearing before Skype or whatever programs they're using?
Well, the entire thing seems to be arranged to happen via Skype, so he ought to be making an appearance by Skype. I rather suspect his lawyers, his attorneys um, may be making plea for him. Whether he will be present virtually or not, we don't know. But you got to remember that this is a serious, serious crime. In my own view, it goes beyond just fraud and beyond just mere criminal action. And I'm hoping that whenever this thing is dealt with by Madam Roxanne George, it is dealt with condignly. And if the parties are held guilty, then we must make sure this is made an example so that nobody ever again can do such things in Guyana.
Yes, absolutely, dear Yog. And so it is going to be, is it a jailable thing? Could somebody who doesn't know what contempt is, the court has ordered you to do something and you did not do it, is contempt jailable? I could remember a case a couple of years back. I was told, I probably wasn't here, and Adam Harris, I think something happened in the newspaper, and as editor-in-chief, Adam Harris was summoned by a judge named B.S. Roy, and he was placed to sit on the bench. And I think the judge has the power, if they believe that you have disrespected the court, held the court in contempt or whatever, and they put Adam Harris to sit on the bench, and they summoned him from Kaieteur News, and he was about to be placed in the lockups. I'm not sure what happened, but I was told that when it comes to contempt, the judge has a lot of powers there. So if I tell you, Yog Mahadeo, that you're ordered to stay indoors for 20 days and not come out of that, that's an order from the court. You breach that, I could jail you for that. What is, let's assume that this thing comes to an ending, what is likely to be the punishment for Clement Mingo and the others? I think the chairperson of GCOM, Justice retired Claudette Singh, has been named too. And the other commissioners, right?
Yeah. Don't forget, let us separate the two things that we seem to be inadvertently conflating. One is that this is a contempt proceeding. It is not a fraud. It's not a matter of charging them for fraud or so as yet. It's a matter of them not following the order of the court, acting in breach of an order of the court. So that has to be proved, whether Mr. Mingo acted in breach of the court order or in contempt. Whether his action would have been contemptuous of the court's order. So it's a different matter. To your point, though, yes, they have requested that the person be committed to prisoner confinement for a month, and there is a fine of $750,000. The issue, though, is not so much the penalty, but the shame.
Well,
I need not say more.
Well, I'm not sure whether I want to agree with you, because one of the discussions that we're going to have within the next couple of weeks as we move closer towards the formation of a government and we start talking issues of transparency and accountability and everything that comes with good governance, we'd have to start talking about upping our game when it comes to punishment for those who believe that they could come into office or wherever they are and do things to the economy, do things to this country, and believe they could walk away into the sunset when it's all over for them. And the elections, the elections being held, you being voted out of office, you being in office committing these things does not absolve you from the necessary repercussions that would come. And so we have to start talking about that, Yog, that people should not be taking advantage of the people of Guyana. We're very serious people. We're very serious about our assets. We intend to make you an example if it is that you are going to use our resources to benefit yourself, other people, and you bypass procedures. There's going to be repercussions for that, and not only for the likes of Clement Mingo and so on, who are now being accused very clearly of doing things, not following procedures, holding the entire country at ransom, and therefore you have to take the fall for that. While I see people very clearly saying that, look, there is a mastermind, there's somebody who's directing it. How you say the intellectual authors, I think.
Intellectual authors.
Right. They would describe them as that. So it is at the end of the day, you can't find the intellectual authors. What you could find is Clement Mingo, and so an example must be made. A lot of people are going to be very upset. He's an elderly person, but look at it. Look at what has been done. We have spent several $100 million, and that's a story that needs to be told. To have a recount for something that you already know the results for. So for you to do that, and then in addition to that, what you would have done in the very early days after March the 2nd, two declarations, not one, and all has been disproved by a recount. This surely you can be walking off into the sunset with something like this and not feel the brunt of the law.
Correct. And this is why I was very careful to point out just now that this here is just the contempt case. I presume that later on more serious charges would be placed because, Leonard, the evidence is in front of everyone. You cannot erase what the recount revealed in terms of those numbers where Mr. Mingo manufactured. He and his cohorts would have manufactured over 19,000 fake votes, fake ballots that doesn't even exist in the box. I want to repeat this. Mr. Mingo manufactured over 19,000 votes that didn't exist in the boxes. Nowhere to be found. These are absolutely fake votes that he counted. And let us all remember, he and who else signed on to those declarations to ensure that in their view, people must accept it because they signed it. So those things are going to be very important in days ahead.
Absolutely. If you're now joining us, elections and COVID-19 watch. And we have a new number here. Don't make a note of it. Our other numbers are down at the moment. There's a cut cable, and so we had to do some magic here with our technicians in the studio here. So that number that you could call is 225 8465 225 8465. We are going to tell you when we're ready to take those calls, and of course you could WhatsApp us or SMS on 622 222. So let me repeat, 225 8465. So Yog, when it comes to also the preparation of that report by Chief Elections Officer Keith Lowenfield, what is it? I'm not very clear. What is it exactly that he's obligated by law to prepare, and what is it that he should not be doing? What is he to take into account as part of his report those observations that would have been made by the coalition representatives during the recount? Is the commission obligated to look at that when it comes times for the contemplation, the deliberations on the report by the Chief Elections Officer?
Absolutely. The CEO, the Chief Elections Officer, has to make a report that puts together the matrices. That's basically the numbers from the tabulation. He has to put together in a report that guides the commission as to how the numbers support one or another of the lists. Now, with regards to the observations, Mr. Lowenfield has to summarize those observations and present that summary report to the commission. One has to remember, present a summary of the reports in terms of, we all know at this stage, those observations were allegations. They are allegations of any number of things that came out, and I'm going to put it plainly here, Leonard. Those allegations came out of a fishing expedition. And in every which way, the fishing expedition was proven to be false. Case in point is the 172 names that came from the police commissioner to the GCOM that was proven to be absolutely fraudulent. So while APNO AFC has been making allegations of fraud, somehow or the other, their list ended up being so fraught with fraudulent information that even the police commissioner's report became in and itself a fraud, because live people living, we had a gentleman call in day before yesterday on this program to say, hey, I am here, I'm living here, I haven't gone anywhere, and my name is on that list. So the whole point about the fraud and where it's coming from is very, very skewed. To your question, he has to prepare a summary of those observations, take it to the commission. I think the big play is to whether Lowenfield has an ability or whether he's allowed the laxity of making an opinion. And the answer is no. In other words, Lowenfield cannot translate the numbers or translate it to think in his opinion these numbers mean so and these observations mean this or that or the other. When you have an audit report, an auditor will report and will say that I am qualifying or disqualifying these financial statements. This is not that. This is making a report of the facts and presenting it to the commission.
So let's get straight down into the timeline, Yog. So June the 13th, based on what we saw of the order that would have made this this recount possible, is that there's an addition to that order which says June the 13th is when Chief Elections Officer Keith Lowenfield has to submit that report to the commission. That's the latest he could do it. It could happen before. Let's see what happens. We put our fingers crossed and say you could do better, and we expect you to do better, but we know that that's the latest date that he could do it. In the meantime, we go straight to the front page of Kaiser News Yog. Some interesting news here with regards to some other issues. At UG, Dr. Paloma Mohammed has been named the UG's first female vice chancellor. Congrats there. She's been around for a little while, and it's always good to see there's a level playing field when it comes to putting people in positions of authority. So I want to say congratulations to Dr. Paloma Mohammed Martin. We hope that you do well and all the best. And of course, when it comes to Gaisuko, big issue, this matter came up again this morning before the opposition leader by Jagdeo. He was asked, how do you deal with that? And he's saying that we're not only looking at Gaisuko, this matter has to be dealt with. Gaisuko is saying that it does not have money to run with its second crop. It barely has money to run it a few more weeks. It has over $2 billion that it owes to creditors right now, and there's a backlog in those payments. And it definitely does not have any money coming into the second crop. So some decisions have to be made there as to how they would deal with that. The country has very little in the kitty jar, but what we do know is that 10,000 workers, almost 11,000 workers, is attached to Gaisuku, and probably don't have an idea where they're going to have their next salary from. The inter-religious organization Cause of Peace and acceptance of the elections results, and it's very good to hear from the different leaders of the different religious bodies, and they're saying that, look, we call you, keep a level head, and of course you accept the elections results as will be announced by the Guyana Elections Commission. And inside the newspaper, these are big news. We have to keep paying attention to them. Teachers divided in adherence to GTUs. This is Guyana Teachers Union Stay Home appeal. You would recall a little early this week, the Guyana Teachers Union would have said to teachers, look, don't go back to school. There is that plan by the Ministry of Education to have kids go back to school to write not only the National Grade 6 exams, but also the CAPE and the CSEC. There's division over that. There's a fear by the ministry. We're trying to get one of the officials to come on. We've been trying, and they've been very busy. But there's a deep fear that if we don't have the kids write the exam now, we wait a couple more months, it's going to be a couple months wasted there. On the flip side of that, many persons are saying to put those kids in a situation where we're not out of COVID, we have not done enough tests, and we don't have an idea how widespread this this virus has really hit this country, it is going to be exposing our students. And then some parents will say, even if we want to do it, my kid has some underlying conditions like asthma and so on. So that many kids suffer from that. To wear a mask for hours on end is not something that they would contemplate very easily. So it's a big news. While we are concentrating on elections 2020, there are other things that is happening. Gaisuko, the school, the return to school by some students, and of course the state of the economy. Yog, yesterday you and I would have talked about this, about people, what this next government heading into office, what are some of the priorities that they would have to be looking at. We've seen Gaisuko hitting now to the front. The state of the economy would have to be one. Of course, I think one of the big issues that they would have to look on the midterm and longer term is the deep division that has remained within our people because of this. A lot of people have been coming out and saying that it's only the politicians that there's an issue with. I'm not sure. I remain a little confused as to whether it is just for a few people, whether it's all Guyana. I think the majority, I have a feeling that they want to get this over with and get it behind. People have been calling us from both sides of the divide here. We would have heard former army personnel, people who are very concerned how this country is going, Yog, and they want to move on. And it is very natural when your life has been put to a halt by COVID-19 and you have the elections on the other hand. It's not something, a place that you would want to be. And so I want to ask you, Yog, just to repeat for the people, what are some of the priorities that this new government would have to deal with when they come into office?
Leonard, to answer that question, we got to take a step back. Look, the country is bankrupt. I don't know. It's really a long stretch now, and I'm hoping that maybe tomorrow night in room 592 we can talk about the economy, because we need to examine our balance sheet. We need to examine where we are. But what I can tell you, what seems to be an amazing financial matter at this stage is it seems like from last month to this month, over the past month, the incumbent, I'll say the squatter government, has spent over $10 billion. Don't ask me what they spent it on, because I just don't know.
How did where did this come up from? How did we see this?
If you look at the current accounts, if you look at what's being released, go to Bank of Guyana website and look at the figures there. You're seeing the movements in the accounts, and you're seeing that we are moving backwards all the time. And don't forget, I rather believe that tomorrow night, as I said, we can look at these figures. But in 2015, when you look at what would have been the reserves compared to now you are overdrawn. So now the government is basically borrowing money from itself. It's borrowing. You remember we had a discussion with Taran Kamraj 2 weeks ago. And that gave us a very stark picture that the government has basically been, for lack of a better phrase, printing money. Now, what it means is that the country is bankrupt. Now, whoever gets into government, if it were APNU AFC that retains power, we already know they would say to Gaisuko, close your doors, you're bankrupt, we have nothing to do. It will be interesting to see what the PPP will do. But I rather suspect, Leonard, we're all expecting miracles, whether it's PPP or whether it's APNU AFC. We're all expecting miracles. At this stage, we know it's PPP. And I want to say to everybody, you cannot, there is no way with the bankrupt nature we are in that you can get a miracle happening. I know one party is even wanting a miracle from GCOM. We'll see whether those miracles are going to come. But coming to the economy, Leonard, Gaisuko is in dire straits. They're in a state of bankruptcy. They have no money to continue operating. Who has bankrupted them? Let us examine how all of a sudden companies are declaring, or huge entities are suddenly becoming bankrupt. So those are the things that we have to look at while a government or a set of politicians sit in office. The other thing that you have to look at is COVID-19, Leonard.
Can't get away from that. Can't get away from that.
The people are dying, there are people starving, and you have people in government that are not doing it. You have politicians in charge of COVID-19 task force. We are saying this every day. Politicians who are more interested in the election results are put in charge of COVID-19. And we don't know. We received 4,000 kits a week ago. How many has been used? I would certainly hope that we would have used 1,000 by now. To see where we are in this national health crisis, I would hope that a new government will immediately send home Mr. Nagamoto and Mr. Harmon and everybody and put professionals, health professionals, strategic thinkers to work that COVID task force. In addition, we need to seriously examine what CDC has been doing and who CDC has been sharing out hampers to. Where has the money that the US Embassy and the international countries given to CDC to help this country in COVID? Where has it been spent? All of those things. But investigation aside, one got to feel the pain of a government now stepping into office, facing a $0 in the purse strings. Nobody know where all the money has gone, what it has been spent on, but we have serious situation here with no money in the kitty, Leonard.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're talking about COVID-19, one of the big areas that I would like them to look into, which we've been receiving a lot of reports, is the monitoring of the borders and what has been happening. You know, one of the things that I've always said, for a country to really set itself down and for the rest of the world to look on with respect is the strength of its laws and how well it enforces those laws. And I think you, from a legal background too, you would want to say that the country is as strong as its laws and the enforcement of such. We have our borders here, and we've made it very clear the borders are closed. And this is something that really, really baffles me. And we've told our people, let's close our business. You can't open the rum shops anymore. You cannot be on the road after 6 o'clock. And guess what? We have people coming in from other countries over to work in our gold mines, to do other stuff, and we allowing it to happen unchecked. And so our back doors are open. We've closed the front door. Our people are trapped inside, and the back door is open for people to run in and run out. And the soldiers standing there, allowing them to have free access to our country. Now, I'm not saying that we should be blocking our country to overseas people. People have been good to us over the years, like the Venezuelans and the Brazilians, Suriname people. So at this point in time, our borders remain closed. You have to show respect for that. And so that's why you would have seen the spike in the hinterland areas, Region 1, Region 7, key areas. We have very little ideas as to how bad the situation is. Now we see in Brazil, I think as of yesterday, I'm seeing some figures, 1,200 deaths in one day. 1,200 deaths from COVID, Yog. I have not even begun to look at that figure. I'm going to try to get it in a very short while. So the new government that comes into place, I've said all of that because the new government that comes into place, when they talk about COVID-19 and we want to get this over with and open back our airports in a very short while, our borders, any decision would have to be fed by scientifically proven figures that come from hard facts, hard figures. We have 2,000 tests, 3,000 tests. It cannot be that 3 months down the line have we reached 2,000 mark when it comes to the number of the tests that we have? Do we know, Yog?
Leonard, that is the problem we have. No. And here is why I'm saying no. We don't know. There has been no systematic testing. There has been no baseline mainstream testing done in a manner to set or to show whether there is a trend or not. The tests we have had has been ad hoc. They have been based on calls. They have been based on people coming in and things like that. So all the tests gone by have been reactive tests, not tests to see and to go through. Remember a month ago, they were supposed to set up test sites across the country. None of that has happened. So there is a lot of work to be done. But I want to tell you something else, Leonard. With regards to the priorities of a new government coming in, we have to look at a couple of things. And I want to advise everybody, and I say so in terms of giving a humble advice to the PPPC. to Mr. Irfan Ali, President-elect Irfan Ali, sir, when you get into office, we cannot let the country continue the way it is with the cavalier attitude people has towards this COVID-19. If we operate and we find a baseline testing to show we are still at high risk, there has to be immediate steps taken. I want to advise citizens across the country. Every time, Leonard, politics aside, people seem to think it's a government responsible for COVID-19. And you and I have said, whether there is a government or not, it's us, the people, that become sick, and us, the people, that will die from COVID-19. We have to be responsible, stay away from each other, observe the protocols. They're very, very simple. For a little while, we need to realize that we have to put these protocols in place and observe them. So, Leonard, I would hope that when the government changes, people are not going to think, oh, it's time to move out and have parties and have this and that. No. Priority has to be the health of this nation. Has to be.
Absolutely, Yog. So elections, COVID-19 watch here on Kaicho Radio 99.1, 99.5. We are going to open the lines within a few moments, 2 to 5, and take note, we have our lines are down, so we have an alternative line now, which you call us on, which is 225-8465. It's up on our screen there, 225-8465. And of course, please WhatsApp us your messages to 62222 as we try to improve our systems to ensure that we bring your concerns, your comments, your observations with regards to situations again to us, so we could be able to tell the people what is it that Guyanese people are thinking when it comes to the development of this country, and what they think about our politicians, what they think should be improved and on the way forward. Yog, before there's a caller on the line, let's go straight into it. Caller, good afternoon, you're on the air.
Hi, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I enjoy the program. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir.
And I would just like to thank Mr. Glenn Lau, my boss man. I would like to thank him so much because I benefit a hamper yesterday. And I would like to say, sir, thank you. God bless you. And 100 people are benefit the hamper. Thank you so much, Mr. Glenn Lau. I'm Zahir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zahir. And I'm sure that if he's listening, he's going to tell you, if he knows that you've called in, that he doesn't want that. He does a lot of things very quietly, and he have a preference for us not to talk about it. I do it sometimes. I push the envelope. But Yog, rightly so, there's many Glen Lals across the country, many organizations. The Mahadeo yourself has one. Myself has one, and we've been trying to do our little things. We have a preference not to talk about it, but it's a way that we should only encourage our people, those who are well healed, has the means, the capacity, to let us help our brothers and sisters in the little way that we can to get over this period. We will get it over. We're a rich country. We're very rich in our resources. We've been talking about potential for years now. We haven't been able to realize that because we've always, you rightfully said it a few moments ago, we leave it up to the government to do, and we don't take the responsibility. Even cavalier attitude of throwing garbage out of the bus or the car that we drive in, or you eat or you drink something, a beer bottle, you drop it right there. Guess why? Because Yog Mahadeo and Gildarie's responsibility to pick it up. Let's start as of today. There's going to be a time for a change. There's going to be a time to move on. And the time is now that we have to change our attitude, not only to protect this country, but to make sure that when people walk into the airport, the Chedijagan International Airport, or they come through Suriname via the Molson Creek ferry, or they come through the Takatu Bridge in Region 9 there from Brazil, that say, wow, I went to Region 9 Letem a few months back, and there's changes that are happening. One of the big things is a road that the coalition would have built there in the middle of Letem there. Beautiful area, we've gone there. The road is something to think about. We have lots of stuff to boast about in this country. We just need to change our attitude, the way that we treat our politicians, what we demand from the people who sit in office, that instead of, if you go into a government office and you see them sitting wrong on the cell phone, I think we have to start doing things a little differently. One of the biggest jobs that you could get in America is working with the government, with the transportation sector, with the train lines. Those are big paying jobs, and so it's a when you get a government job in the United States, the benefits everybody try for it. The pay might not be the best of things, but you get the best health care, you get the best of everything. Working in Guyana, working at a government office, unless you're taking bribes, and we could call it as it is, Yog. People, have a don't care attitude. They look at somebody who come through as a inconvenience, and customer service goes through the window. Nobody thinks about that. There has been some major changes in organizations like the Guyana Revenue Authority. It is still lagging behind, but I've seen changes. You go to pick up a birth certificate, there's some changes that's been happening there. Passport office, a big development on that. Whether there's anything that we could boast about, it is the way that some of these services has been unrolled, and we continuously have to improve it. The police, I see police are a little more respectful now. They probably don't know who has a cell phone, who has a camera phone, who's videoing, so they're very circumspect in what to say. Good evening, sir. We conducting a check. These are the things that we want to see. So let us be good ambassadors. Let us be responsible corporate citizens. Let us be responsible citizens. Let us be good to our neighbors. Let us pray for this country, make it a little better. Let us demand of the next government that comes into play. I don't think there's going to be any honeymoon, because they'd have to get straight into work to correct, to repair, to do so many other things that needs to be done. Yog, before you open the line, anything else that you would want to say?
Yes, I just want to respond to a question that one of our viewers would have sent in, Mr. Richard Aklu. He has questioned what would have happened, what we think would have happened to the 18 million US dollars that would have been part of that first signing bonus. And we have to remember, Leonard, it is an important question. It was because of the country, because of people like this Culture News and the media that agitated for full declaration of that money, that it was eventually found, right? Because it was hidden away somewhere under the premise that it's going to go be used to fight the border case. So now what we do know is that the government had promised to incorporate those monies into the Bank of Guyana finances, into the government central fund. If that did happen, then it means all of that money has now been used up. All of the local reserves have vanished, and there is none. But we are going to have a separate discussion on that.
Absolutely, dear Yog. And so, as we continue moving this country forward within the next couple of weeks, there's going to be many debates, many things that we'd have to talk about, the state of the economy.
Leonard, if I may, we got to be careful with something else too. I'm sorry to interject, but the matter of the allegations of fraud on these elections, I just want to say this because we need to be clear with this. The allegations of fraud on these elections, we must not just throw them aside. We must not just cast them away and say they're frivolous. Allegations are something serious. I would certainly hope that the people who have made these allegations, Leonard, will go to the courts of Guyana after the swearing in, go to the courts and prove your allegations, because it will be interesting then to see if there is no proof, what would happen to those people who have wasted all of this time and money of this country. But I want to be sure, I don't think the press or the public should allow these allegations of fraud to just go away into the sunset after these elections. The allegations, at least we know the ACNU AFC are very serious about them, needs to be presented in a court petition and needs to be investigated thoroughly. And if it is proven that they were indeed that magnitude of the fraud, proven, those allegations being proven, then the court will certainly have to have one duty, and that is to nullify these elections. But that is after the declarations, and who knows when it could happen. Don't forget, in the meantime, When would GCOM be ready for another elections? And I think this is what APNO AFC is banking on. They don't want, I wish to call them out on this, they don't want GCOM to declare Irfan Ali as president because they know GCOM will not be ready for another election, maybe God knows when. So there is another brewing sinister plot that we have to burst it out there and let people realize what's going on. But the allegations of fraud, Leonard, is serious and has to be taken to the courts.
Absolutely, there, Yoga. Let me tell you this. I want to echo that. There is about half of Guyana, the voters, less than half, uh, people who believe that the People's Progressive Party and the other parties would have done something. So it needs to be put out there so that people could bring closure to this situation and that this fiasco of elections 2020. There's another caller online. Let's go straight. Good afternoon, caller. You're on the air.
Listen, hold on, call wait. Kaito Radio, I asked you guys already. You have Mr. Rahman Rahim. He has threatened to burn. He has threatened to kill. And we need to report this gentleman to the police. I've taken a screenshot of your post, Mr. Rahman. Please get off this radio station and get off our Facebook page if you cannot be human. Leonard, we need to call these people out because this one has just threatened to put fire and bloodshed.
Okay,
Let us take a screenshot and send this to the police.
Look, let me address that, and then the caller does give us a few moments there. In the meantime, let me echo what it is. We being here monitored by the Guyana National Broadcasting Authority. We have to ensure that we keep these airwaves very clean. Our Facebook comments, it's there for mature people who want to engage this country into make it into a better country. When we have this, there's ways to do it. So, Mr. Rahim, oh come on, man, there's different ways that we could engage each other, and that is very, very dirty. That's not good. You could do a little better than that. In any case, I think he's blocked. I think we're gonna block that right now, Yog. And so, in the meantime, there's a caller in here. Good afternoon, caller. Yes, good afternoon, caller.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
I'm calling to tell you guys thanks for the program. I've been listening to you guys nearly every day. And I hear you when speaking about the state assets and the removing of state assets from the government offices by these ministers or who was ministers. I was watching a video with Cherry Jagan with an interview on an interview where the media operative asked him how was his first month in office, and he said that it was very tough for him when he sworn in to become the president. It was very tough for him because of what the opposition the party PNC was in government, and what they had done is to misuse the state assets, remove the government vehicle and convert them to their own use, and put people in certain position that they could have controlled. And exactly that is what, when Irfan Ali swearing, he has to go now and start all over again to do the same thing that Cherry Jagan did how much years back. And we ain't moving forward. And next thing, I hear Bharat say a word, don't make certain remarks to the chairman. But people is very annoyed with the chairman of GCOM because she has sworn and took an oath to be the chairman of GCOM, and she sat there and see Mingo made a fraudulent declaration at GCOM and sit there and said nothing about it. She never come to the press. All she's sending Yolanda Ward, the PRO, to the press without any proper information to brief the public. So how could Claudette Singh sit down there and see all of this taking place and she's not saying nothing? Look at this now. They have two roadblocks, police roadblocks in Borbies, right? They were put there under the then commander for B Division, Mr. Lyndon Alves. He was sent on administrative leave because his phone number was found in the thief man phone in Blackbush folder. He put the roadblock there under the APNU government because he used the word and say he is a president boy under Granger. And if he is involved in crime, I don't see the purpose of that roadblock there. When last they have intercepted drugs or narcotics or wanted person. And this is what PPP need to look in. All they do, harass the people wrongfully and take people money out there and don't deliver a quality service to members of the public. And I want the PPP to look into these aspects. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, dear sir. And let's go straight. Yog, before I ask for all callers there, let me just read a couple of texts that we would have received. And this is on our WhatsApp, 6222222. Kaisuko has a bunch of pensioners in the system, including at the factories and head office, who are raping the industry, and the contribution is nil. They have 3 salary, their salary, the NIS pension, gratuity, and not to mention the allowances. So how can young, educated Guyanese have employment? These people must go now. That's with regards to that. Let me see some others. Mr. Leonard, I don't think that Mingo Bingo would appear in court tomorrow because a backtrack boat captain told people he was hired to take Mingo to Suriname. I think it's somebody here is probably here. And I was told that giving out hampers to poor people. I have severe arthritis in the spine, and I'm not working since March. I've been needed some food. I think, Yoga, I'm going to send this maybe to you. You've been so helpful. Looking forward to professional response on the police force regarding the safety of government property and the citizens. Can Mr. Dr. Yog Mahadeo say whether all the 172 names that APNU provided GCOM were incorrect? I think we would have addressed that. Some names, I think more than 20 names, more than almost 30-something names would have come forward saying they were in Guyana. Yog, quickly, you want to say something with regards to that? Is it 30-something names out of the 172?
Yes, and of course, look, it's a matter of this. If APNO is saying, let's just use a logic. If APNO is saying that they found an incidence of 2,000 or one person that voted improperly and the entire elections are fraudulent, then 30 of 100 names throws the entire list into suspicion. The point is, though, that Mr. Leslie James has some serious introspection and investigation to do in his own department. Whether Mr. Leslie James has been misled by being given a report that he has to present, but one would expect that Mr. James is going to investigate our report and bring it out for the people to see.
Absolutely, dear Yog. And so, good afternoon, Yog and Leonard. Condolences to Randidipu family. I would like action to be taken on Mingo and calling on President Granger to let his minister protect state assets. Serious action must be taken to persons found guilty. Let me see. Good afternoon. Do you guys have any idea what is going on with the Ocean View project? Haven't heard anything in the media about this for a little while. We'd have to check into that, sir. You're quite right. Good afternoon, guys. Can you say how to opt out of common entrance? How the opt out of common entrance option will work? Like will the ministry write the kids who opt out to let them know which school they would be given? Please pay feedback. Let me tell you what we have learned with regards to that. So if you are going to the Diamond Primary School and you decide that you're not going to write the exam, the school that is nearest to that is maybe the Diamond Secondary School. You're going to be placed in that. Based on what the ministry is saying is that there is going to be a placement exam while you at that secondary school, maybe in the first year or the second year, that is going to see whether you could attend Queen's College or whichever other school that could be attended. That is our understanding of it. I spoke to Mr. Alfred King, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Education this morning. Hello there, Mr. King. I know that you guys have been working very hard preparing the new policies. It's a difficult situation. I did ask Mr. King for somebody senior within the Ministry of Education to be present in our program here, the Elections What COVID-19, or room 592, to update the people of Guyana as to how they arrive at some of the decisions and some of the scenarios that are likely to play out from this. So we are going to pursue that to get somebody as early as possible, Yog, onto this program here. I think there's a caller online. Good afternoon, caller. You're in the air.
Hi, good evening or good day.
Good day.
It's taken so long to get on to you guys, but anyway, I called to say I'm so happy and I feel whole of Guyana is so proud. We must congratulate Mr. Barrett and Mr. Nandalal. They are two great sons of the soil to hold up and to represent Guyana. And my heart is not big enough to say how happy I'm proud for those two guys. I wish we have more like him in around. And secondly, the school. I don't know what other people is. This is only my suggestion. Why can't the COVID-19 people do what they have to do, clean the school out, do whatever, and let school reopen maybe first of next month, the first week in next month, whatever, and give the children 2 weeks. All children go out to school. Give them 2 weeks of schooling, July and August, and give write the exam in September. Because I think we got to skip some of these holidays. The children have a long time at home. I don't know if that is possible.
Well, I thank you very much for that, for the lady that called here. These are some of the questions that we want to pose to the officials, to those in authority at the Ministry of Education, and we are hoping that we could have gotten the Chief Education Officer to be on the program here. So we are going to continue, Dr. Yoga and myself, to engage the Ministry of Education to get somebody here on the program and see whether we could get those answers out to you. Here is an interesting question. Can you say if the PPP, when the PPP gets sworn in, will they be able to fire some of the managers in government places, for example, the Chronicle? Let me address this in the little ways that I know, and then maybe Yog, I would love to hear your take on this too. It should not be a policy of, I know that whenever there's a new government, the ministers would be replaced. They're going to have probably their own drivers and so that they would want to use. But when it comes to firing people who are in positions, like for example, the people that remain that is not supposed to be beholden to the government that comes into place, but rather to the system. People like the permanent secretaries or the chief executive officers within the ministries, they are supposed to be there, and whichever government comes into place, they remain there unless they do something wrong or they've reached the age of retirement or there's a reshuffling of the PSs, the permanent secretaries within the ministries. The clerks that remain there are supposed to remain there. If there's a chief executive officer, let's say the Guyana Energy Agency, these are not people that just come in and say, let's remove Yog Mahadeo Gildarie from being the CEO. It's not something that we're supposed to be doing. That is not part of the executive. However, if maybe they find that these people are involved in something else, they got to be a system that governs, like for the public sector employees. I think there's a public sector commission, Yog, thing that deals with that. There's a system, there are procedures to be used before you could hit anybody out of the system, and it should be followed. If somebody, they don't want a permanent secretary there, they could, there's a system to be followed there as well. So I would not say, I think Bar Jagdeo has said that. I think Air Finale is committed to that because we pay very close attention. We know that government that comes in, they would want to spite people, and as I say, they would want to weed out some of the whistleblowers and others that they believe have not going to be in favor of them. That is not something that our country would want to do.
Leonard, if I may.
Sure.
So here is the opposite view to what you are saying there. So if the chairman of Chronicles board is on the slate of APNO AFC and is engaged in these past 100 years in all of these ridiculous magic, all of this ridiculous inciting nonsense across the country, should a new government still retain that person in the job? Absolutely not.
I agree with you on that.
If you want to play politics, you want to be a politician, then you will have to be swayed when the political will sways. I believe that is one. Two, Mr. Ali has made a statement that his government will not witch hunt. Mr. Ali, President-elect Ali, also, I say this very humbly to you, sir. There is a difference between witch hunt and kicking out thieves and kicking out people who has held this nation at ransom. Here is my point. I would abhor the day when I would have to continue to pay the salary as a taxpayer of some of these thieves who have raped the treasury. And you are telling me, because you don't want to witch hunt, I must continue to pay their salary? No way. It cannot be looked as that it's a political witch hunt. It must be looked at what is the right thing to do for the taxpayers of this country. Politicians must realize they don't generate funds. They're not a revenue generation entity. Government doesn't generate money. It's the people, the farmers, the producers that make taxes, that pays taxes, that they get as their salaries. And we demand action. We want to see those who have been doing nonsense pay for it. We cannot accept this thing under a witch hunt that you're going to leave some people there. No way.
Absolutely. And so there's a caller online. Good afternoon, caller. You're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, good afternoon, sir. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, sir.
I'd like to begin by respectfully disagreeing with Mr. Mahadeo that Guyana is broke. We just haven't transferred funds from one fund to the other to have it available. Secondly, when it comes to all of our independent organizations, our independent constitutional organizations, I think everybody needs to understand, regardless of what GCOM is doing or what they have to wait for with GCOM, the police, the army, and every other constitutional body needs to not be waiting on a declaration. They need to give respect to the numbers that are there, not to go out and salute, but to not take sides because they have to wait on a declaration, so they can't be playing politics and not recognizing a person or not. Thirdly, Gaisuko has been going down a hole long before this government. I don't take sides on nothing. This government did not start the downfall. It was something that they inherited. But the problem that I saw in the paper today that Gaisuko is bankrupt, it seems to be confusing because I have a very, very, very good memory. And one of the things that I know that Gaisuko borrowed some money through NISL to do some work, and they haven't used it, and they're paying interest. NISL has been selling a lot of Gaisuko assets. Where is the money? So Gaisuko cannot be broke. When it comes to us in this country, I am tired of people worrying about these people making threats. Foolish people will always say foolish things. To burn anything in Guyana is to burn our country, and any foolish person will say that, but wise people will know that all of us, this country is ours, and we cannot damage it or damage each other because we all need each other. Thank you very much. I'll listen to your comments off here.
Thank you very much, dear caller. Right on the button, right on the money with those comments here. Gaisuko, Yog, the gentleman is saying Guyana is not broke, that it has some money released. I'm not sure. Could we touch those oil monies or so at this point in time? And could we say that we broke if we have money?
Well, a couple of things. One is to that caller, thank you. That's a powerful statement you made there. And it's a timely reminder to all of us who are not politicians that this country is ours, and we are making a handful of people, we're making them make us go mad. Sir, with regards to the finances, yes, I would want to agree to disagree with you. My thing is that as is, we are broke, because here is what, if you got to bail out Gaisuko for $1 trillion, if you got to look after the bauxite workers, if you got to look after the municipalities, if you got to find money to put here, there, and everywhere, if you got to remember, Leonard, all of the hospitals across this country has no pharmaceuticals other than Panadol, maybe. We had a caller from Skellen a couple days ago. The health system has gone down the drain. Everything has gone into a serious deficit. So the 40 plus million US that we got as the oil money that is in the reserve I want us to remember something. That money would have come in here and it would have been used from a ground zero to make us better, not from a minus position to bring us back to ground zero. So you're in a double whammy because that money is now going to be used to bring us back to ground zero level rather than lift us off where we ought to have been lifted off. A lot of things have gone wrong. The rice industry is in shambles. People are planting rice, but with Gaisuku closed, the drainage and irrigation system needs serious looking after. There are lots and lots of things that would have to take the attention of the government when they get into power, Leonard. But in terms of the finances, we'll certainly hope to assess the entire financial situation of the country in another night or two in room 590.
Absolutely, and don't forget, there's this big headline on Kiteshore News today at the bottom. Almost 90% of the world will be worse off by year end. So we have a lot of headaches here. We have an uphill task, a lot of hurdles that are standing in our way. We have a contract with our oil company, the Exxon Mobil contract. It's the elephant in the room that needs to be addressed. So many things that we'd have to pay attention to. I think it takes some quick comments because we did promise our people. Let me see what is happening here. Good afternoon, brothers. I'm listening to a program concerning Gaisuku. I just want to say this. My son is a graduate person at the institution for 2 years. He studied, and just after he graduated, the Skellen estate closed on to this day. He's now working. And I think that estate would have been closed about 4 years now. Last Tuesday, they called him for a trade test, and the person who was in charge told him that the certificate is not valued as a mechanic and an auto electrician, and that's only $6,000 that they're offering him, and he's living all the way at Skellen. I'm not sure if this $6,000 is a monthly pay, a weekly pay, or whatever, but we hear you. Many people would have lost their jobs. Many people are finding it very difficult. People who were making styles before, taking anything as it comes. People are glad for anything, so very tough times. Hey guys, how come the boxes without documents can be counted and the army votes cannot be counted? Can Dr. Mahadeo bring some clarity for me? Not sure I heard any explanation for this. Dr. Mahadeo, and you'll be taken to task here now, Doc. They said that I guess you're a politician because you will see if you're not a politician that the PPPC is no pie. Call black, Dr. Mahadeo.
Well, I wouldn't want to call any color black, red, green, white, brown. But here is what. Good question. I wish to say this. Look, who has said that the disciplinary services votes were not counted? That's absolutely rubbish. That is nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Has GCOM come out, has Yolanda Ward said that the disciplinary services votes were not counted? No way. I want to reassure. Disciplinary services votes have been counted. By the way, who knows what ballot come from who? Why are you telling me you know that this ballot belonged to Yog Mahadeo or belonged to Leonard Gildarie? How do you know that any of the spoiled ballots, who it belonged to? That's one. Two, Leonard, the total number of spoiled ballots in this 2020 elections, let me repeat, the total number of spoiled ballots in these 2020 elections is approximately 4,000 something, 4,211. 4,211. You know how much disciplinary services votes there are? Over 8,000. This spoiled ballots, 4,211 represent the spoiled ballots of the entire country. You know how many spoiled ballots there were in 2015 elections? 4,017. Do not drink that Kool-Aid. That is misinformation. That is where the fraud is, in the peddling of nonsense. Another thing, Leonard, I want to quickly go back to this thing about witch hunt. Because you have some square pegs in round holes. You have people who never even looked at a pepper plant. They don't know the difference between cane and grass that have been put into senior positions in agriculture. Are you saying we need to keep them? Are you saying that the people who have been on the slate of a political party and are still permanent secretaries or senior public servants that a new government ought to keep. Now, let me tell you what happens. You look what happened in the US when Trump became president. People voluntarily tendered their resignations. People voluntarily give up their positions because they know, look, any government has to question your loyalty to their cause, and their cause being what they're mandated to do by the electorate. So let's not, people are sitting there and waiting that they will be fired, and then they will sue the state for more money, and it's taxpayers' money they're suing for. So they're pushing a dagger through the taxpayers' heart, one time at election, one time by not doing the right thing. If you're a square peg man, get up, go home, leave the taxpayers' money, free us of this burden, but let this country be able to breathe a little bit. Third thing I'd like to say, and I want to thank Judy Glad, one of our viewers here, keeps saying and keeps reminding us about this notion of investigation of the allegations. I dealt with it already, Leonard. When the allegations are only allegations, why is everybody saying there is fraud? There is only allegations. It needs to be proven. And Section 163 of our Constitution says, and Judy, I'm reading this for you, my sister. Section 163 of the Constitution says, the High Court has exclusive jurisdiction to determine these questions. Not Claudette Singh, the High Court has exclusive jurisdiction. So those square pegs who are peddling this kind of things and giving a Jim Jones type of Kool-Aid here, they need to be called out as well, Leonard. And it is really not good to continue to harp on these total, absolute nonsense day in, day out. People are intelligent and people will decide for themselves.
Thank you very much, dear Dr. Yog Mahadeo. If you're now joining us, elections, COVID-19 watch here on Kaicho Radio 99.1, 99.5. You could also get us on Kaicho Radio on Facebook, on YouTube, and of course, Kaicho News Online. You could click on the button there with the radio and you could be able to hear us as well. And let me read this very quickly before we go to the phone line again. Good afternoon, Mr. Gildarie, Dr. Yoga. I recently saw a photo today of QC students being socially distanced, and even for secondary school students looking distressed. Just looking at these students made me realize how difficult it would be for the grade 6 students to social distance. More planning needs to be put into the school restart. Maybe some of the 30,000 masks that were to be used by GCOM can be reserved for the students. I don't think you get no more mask in the kitty jar there, my dear. So there's a caller online. Good afternoon, caller, you're on the air. Yes, good afternoon, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon.
I'm Dr. Yog to both of you, comrades.
Thank you.
Let me say I must extend my sincere gratitude and thanks to both of you, comrades, to enlighten what is happening in our country and to have patience and faith and to update the Guyanese. I want to say that it's indeed a very sad situation. Why? We have Guyanese and the entire country were waiting a very long time that they would have casted the ballot on March the 2nd, and we have actually passed 3 months, going on close to 4 months. And we have not had an election result declared yet. We respect the outcome of GCOM, waiting on GCOM to declare that result. And also, it's sad to say, I am an activist of one of the party, the main party of Guyana. And one of our comrades who worked tremendously, tiredly hard for this election, March the 2nd, would have passed away last night. And I start to know that people were waiting in the country to know who would have been the next government. And a lot of people died and gone to rest and could have never known what would have been the final outcome in Guyana. That's one of the sad situations for Guyanese in this country. I'm a Muslim leader. And that man, Mr. Rahim, I want to say to him, if he's listening or he's watching him, as a Muslim, it is a total disgrace and shame on the Muslim society for call for violence and fire across this nation. If he call himself a Muslim, He must decline from such an act that is totally forbidden and wrong in Islam. That's one point I want to make. The next point I would like to make is that I want to call on all Guyanese, every single Guyanese, to be patient, to have faith. This is a country that belongs to every Guyanese. The People Progressive Party would have prepared a manifesto. And if you look at the manifesto, Leonard and Dr. Yog, which I know you all did, it's a manifesto not for the people that voted for the People Progressive Party. It is a manifesto for all Guyanese. And I know that Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali will deliver good governance and will take care of the Guyanese people. And we as politicians will be watching them at the ground, at the root level, to ensure whatever promises has been made to Guyanese must be delivered for whatever races, for whatever background, from whatever religion we came from. We are all human beings, and we need to put our shoulders to the wheel and to start working this country so that we can get over the pandemic virus, and we can start to feed our nation, and we can start to put system and take care of our education sector. And finally, Leonard, I must give credit to you and credit to Dr. Yo to be very straightforward and to speak out and to be there and to let the public know what is happening. My gratitude goes out to Dr. Comrade Anil Nandalal, Dr. Gunraj, and Dr. Barrett Japti and many others. And I will call on the previous government and the government who now stands in a caretaker government. Mr. Granger, he is an elderly man. You serve as a leader of this nation, and do not let your reputation or your record go down the drain or the gutter. Call on your former minister to respect the constitution of this country, and I say to my African brothers and sisters, do not be fooled, do not be carried away by these politicians, because when you go out there and you destroy, you are destroying your own country, and you're putting your country into serious crisis. So, Leonard, I trust in God and Dr. Yo that this has to do with prayer. We must pray and ask God that peace will prevail in this nation. We must ask God that peace continue to prevail, that it will prevail. And I pray that God will bless Dr. Yo and his family, you, Leonard, and your family, and may we come together and move this nation and move this country and put it back on the map. Thank you, both comrades, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, dear sir. Let me tell you this. I'm very, very, very proud that our country has people like you, and that who's not afraid to stand up and say it as it is. And you have said maybe what's in the heart of many in terms of although you are a activist within your party, you're still gonna very clearly hold your party feet to the fire. Those are very, very good words, and I could tell you that we appreciate it very much. I think the people of Guyana appreciate it, and very eloquent too. Yog, I know that you're raring to go to probably respond or comment on what the call this is, but very, very powerful statements there coming from a very solid citizen of Guyana. Very proud of you.
Yeah, I am sorry. Sorry to be laughing here, but one of our friends of this program sent a comment in, and I just want to share it with you and the viewers. He said, "Those square pegs don't know. Those square pegs don't know, one, that they are pegs, two, that they are square, or three, that the hole is round, and so they don't know that they're not fitting in." You know, it's good it's good that we make light of these moments. Back to the caller, sir. I believe, unfortunately or fortunately, not many Guyanese would have been on the list, and you know, we have all allowed and we have supported various political leaders, as is our right. The future of this country will not, must not, should not be left to the hands of PPPC or any future party that will be sworn in. Their remit is to provide good leadership, to give good governance, and to be transparent in every core function and functionality. And we, the people, would be the biggest losers and the biggest fools if we ever allow governments of Guyana to be carrying on business of Guyana without transparency and without question.
And Yog, thank you for that. Let me tell you this, there's a lot of love coming from our listeners and our viewers today. Our texts, there have been so many, I really want to apologize. We can't really read all of them, but we thank you very much. We're going to try to get hold of them and then see how we could put it in a very prominent place so people could hear from you. But there's one that is interesting here. Can the kids' performance for over the past 4 or 5 years be analyzed and use that result to place the kids in a secondary school? It is absolutely not safe to have those kids back in school. It's way too soon. And I think there's a good point there that we could be able to use some performance. If your kid is a high performer, you would not want to place them in a school that is right next door to you when they could probably
Well,
go to
yeah,
another. But do we have the capacity? That's a question.
well, Leonard, look, I mean, it's one could also question the bland statement that if you choose to opt out of the exam, you'll be placed in a school near to you. So it means nobody will then go to QC.
Yes.
Nobody will
Mhm.
then go to President's College, or those schools that are high performer or high performers. How are they going to get students if every kid decide to opt out? So we got to look at what metrics would be in place. I know that the ministry, the education people may have put certain benchmarks and certain statements out there. I'm sure they're working on it. The problem we have is the politics in this country keeps messing it up. So the people, and I say this with respect to them, I haven't spoken to any of them, Leonard. I know you were trying to get the education people to come on board, but here is what's happening. And I wish to appeal to them, to the chief education officer and your deputy and other people there. Sir, and ladies and gentlemen there, we know you probably are very reluctant to come out and say anything to the public because of the politics. But at this time, this nation needs you guys to come out and speak with the parents, speak with stakeholders. Don't let politics ruin education. Let's take our professionalism to another level and come and meet and talk with the public and get our children matters sorted out. Is that unfair, Leonard, to expect this from the education department?
No, and because they're the authorities, they have to ensure that the people are given. This is a very unusual times, Yog. We are in a situation, we've gone into a land where we've never been before. And so, what do we expect? We don't expect it to be perfect, but at least we expect to hear from the authorities. We expect to hear from COVID-19 task force. We don't expect to be hearing. I could remember every Saturday, every Friday, a couple of months back, a couple of weeks back, that Prime Minister Moses Nagamutu and Imran Khan would have been hosting a COVID-19 task force press conference. I can't remember the last time that has happened. We saw a statement coming in between, few and far in between. We have not had another press conference. So the point is, we need our authorities to be there, to be speaking. Here is an interesting one. It's amazing. I'm reading from a text here on 6222222. It's amazing when GCOM don't go in the direction of the PPP. They cry foul. And the Kaito radio bash GCOM. And when GCOM go in a way that people, GCOM, y'all pray GCOM. This is what the person is saying. The people, PPPC, who members are part of so much crimes and all sorts of things are not being looked at as spies. I'm not sure what that means, but what I could tell you is that Kaito News, Kaito Radio, Leonard Gildarie, and I'm sure you could speak for himself, does not have a dog or a cat or a horse in the race. We do not endorse any political party. In fact, we've stayed away from saying anything that is going to bring any further division to our fragmented society. We do not have a constituency. We are doing our work as media, as an empire. We are very clear in our mandate. Mr. Glenn Lal has made it very, very clear to us what our mandate is. He said that he is not voted. He has no intention of voting ever again because he wanted to be very clear in his mind that if a political party is sitting there that they will be held accountable, and they should be held accountable for all times. We should be able to ask them the hard questions. So that will continue. I'm not aware that that mandate has changed. So whether it's the PPP, whether it's the APNU, whether it's a coalition, we're going to ask the hard question. Already, the People Progressive Party is not in government as yet, and we are saying to them that we don't expect you to have any honeymoon when you get in there. The scrutiny starts right away. In fact, we want to know now, the questions are being asked. Are you going to be firing people willy-nilly who you may not be seen as supporters? Yog has addressed it. Myself has put what I think it is. I do believe that that we should be going in a situation where there's a level playing field, that we go in according to the rules, and nothing is going to change from that. Kaiser News, Kaiser Radio is not going to be changing from that. Over to you, Yog.
Well, look, I just wish to say it in the following way. To that person who sent the message, we don't have to defend ourselves. I think the public out there knows exactly what the truth is, and that's all I know. This show here and Room 592, that both Mr. Gildarie and myself, under the overview and overwatch of the entire Kaitor management, that we have been very careful. We call it as we see it. If that viewer or caller, viewer or listener does not know truth, then we can't help you. We have not been taking a side. I am calling it how I see it. Yog Mahadeo, I see the numbers of these recount. I see that President Irfan Ali should by today be president. I see the delay in GCOM to get this report done and to get a declaration happening as sheer unacceptable nonsense. In any other country, the moment the numbers come out, you want to move on with your country's business. This delay, one after the other, and we are holding GCOM responsible. And Leonard, it's you and I that suggested for the first time, let's have a commission of inquiry into GCOM and its operations of the 2020 elections. Then other people have picked up this call.
And that's
So
not going to
we
change,
gotta
Yog.
call,
That's not going to change. I'm going to continue calling for it.
of course. And I just want to say, the media, and I certainly hope, Leonard, when you guys carry on with the future and the election season is out, I certainly hope the media will continue to be as intensive in its scrutiny of the performance of the next government of Guyana. No more, I keep saying this in every program, no more must we have the kind of things we went through. Never again must a Mingo be allowed to cost this country billions of dollars. Never again must we have a situation where you have 2,900 to 2,600 people employed all across the country, and your leader come out and say all of you were bribed, the police were bribed, and everybody was. No more. These politicians that have held this country in ransom, Leonard, I want to call everybody. Never again must we give them a chance to ever spew this kind of division that this country is undergoing.
Absolutely, a different dispensation. Let us stick that in our head, a different time. So we got to be a little different in the way that we expect. We should raise our expectations. We deserve so much more. Very quickly before we go to the phone lines, good afternoon, guys. At the Saudi hospital, they don't have drugs in the hospital. Families have to buy medication and diabetic strips so the family can get the test. Guys, I do not want you to call the name because it's one of the family of the Minister of Business. When they ask him, he says, so what happened? And so that's at the Saudi hospital. They run out of medication there. People are being told to go get the drugs and diabetic strips elsewhere. I'm going to have to find out whether we have a shortage of the diabetic strips. There's a caller online. Good afternoon, caller. You're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, good afternoon, caller. You're
Hi,
on the
good
air.
afternoon.
Kaito Radio.
Guys, how are everything?
Pretty good, sir.
Well, I'm glad everybody hold on a little bit, keep the little patient going, and then we get the results. And we hope these people, when they're swearing, that they start to help the people as early as possible. I know that they have money, but I think they could get a little loan and so on from the IDP now because they are legal, and they should do that early as possible because people are starving. A lot of people are now starving, so I'm glad if they could start and help them out as early as possible. Y'all take care and have a nice evening.
Thank you very much for that. And let me say, Yog, that's an issue that is a very sore one here at Kaichor News. Many days there's been battles over the fact that we have so much oil out there, and we have to be going to the World Bank and the IDB and wherever else to borrow when we have lots of oil out there. Plenty oil, over 15 billion barrels that we've been told, and we have to be begging for scraps, $1 million here, $1 million there, and we signed away over $3 billion because a oil company told us that this is what this house or this is what this floating platform is going to cost us to develop. It says over $3 billion. We didn't blink an eye, and we scrambling for a million here and there and everywhere. Somebody got to be very, very crazy. I think, Yog, I'm not sure if the oil issue is going to be around with us for a little while. This is something that could make our country very, very rich. We were talking about 82% growth a few months back. Now today, many countries in the Caribbean will be having a negative growth. Guyana might barely push its head above water. While we're talking about growth, we don't have any money in the kitty jar. How do we deal with the issue of oil? What do we say to the next government that comes into place? How should we be screaming at them? Should we be telling them you need to get your act together and fix this?
Well, yes. It is expected that the new government will immediately, Leonard, immediately start to put things in place to reassess those contracts. We cannot be screwed over again. They need to reassess those oil contracts. They need to immediately look at the local content policy to ensure that Guyanese get maximum from these things. They need to immediately relook at the strategies. And this is one of the more serious things that the government will really have to relook at. How is it and where is it going to use or where is it going to allocate the oil revenues as a matter of priority to build what sector? Because remember, Leonard, a government has to spend oil money so that after the oil is finished, we would have built a country up that is self-sustaining. That has to be one of the long-term strategies that must be in place. And certainly, I think the press is going to keep their feet to the fire.
And talking about that, the U.S. Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, he, in his press briefing this morning, has zeroed in also or mentioned Guyana to the press there. And this is what he had to say. The United States continues to stand for democratic values elsewhere in the hemisphere too. We look forward to a quick and credible conclusion to the vote recount in Guyana. We expect transparent and credible outcomes in the legislative elections in Suriname as well. And we continue to support the Venezuelan people in their quest for freedom. So we look forward, with regard to Guyana, we look forward to a quick and credible conclusion to the vote recount in Guyana. And Yog, this is a question that I'm really, really concerned about, this issue here, that we have not damaged our relations. I know that the people, our partners, over the last couple of weeks, statements have been coming out about various representatives of the Western countries and raising questions as to the characters and so on. And one of the concerns that we would have raised is that it doesn't damage our relations, sometimes decades-old relations with those countries. But I think those people know that that is not what is reflective of what the Guyanese people feel, that we want to continue being partners. We want to see that there is mutual beneficial relations, that everybody benefits, that we could sit down at the table and we could talk to you and not say that Yog is a one-sided person, that he is going to be there in his heart negotiating with us to ensure that there is a mutually beneficial arrangement that could be had, whether it's in the oil industry, whether it's our gold relationship with Goldfield, whether it's a trade agreement. We should have good relationship with our partners overseas, whether it's the countries of the United States, Canada, and Britain, the EU, our partners in Venezuela, because whether we like it or not, one of the questions that came up the other day was how do we asked Mark Phillips, who is the prime ministerial candidate of the People's Progressive Party yesterday, how they're going to deal with that court case that we have with Venezuela on the border issue at the International Court in The Hague. And he says that, this has to do with our borders. It has to do with the protection, and we stand behind it. We're going to continue it. We're going to pursue it until the end. Very, very important. So we have to continue looking at what we've been saying to mend those relationships, to repair it, and move on with our country. We need to have deals that are good, that is good for this country, and we should move on from there. Yog?
Of course, Leonard. And let me just put it this way too. Ramesh Prasad has made a wonderful comment. I think it puts us back full in perspective of what we're discussing here. 100 days have gone since these elections, Leonard. And Ramesh is right. Ramesh, thank you. That's a great point. Ladies and gentlemen, today we might have been starting the discussion of assessing a government first 100 days in office. Instead, we have people 100 days after still kicking the ball down the road, kicking outside of the goal, shifting the goalposts, and 100 days of shenanigans, 100 days of just fooling people, and of course, 100 days of real in-depth and ingrained fraud. So instead of assessing 100 days in a government of being in office, we are still chasing. And, Leonard, we all keep talking about the 13th and the 16th of June. Chris Ram said something the other day that's very important. Suppose, I wish to ask you this, suppose GCOM tomorrow says and they go and pass another order to say we're extending the 16th of June to 25th of December. All of these things are concerned. And when Barajadil says, and I respect his views and he is right, we are not attacking and nobody should attack the chairman, but we need answers and we need it quickly. You need it expeditiously, and you need it because people are sick, people are dying, this country is bankrupt, and everything is going helter-skelter. And this is why, remember, Leonard, in closing, I'm going to say this, remember Roxanne George, that good lady, when Madam Chief Justice Roxanne George was listening to the first case against Mingo, you know what she said? She said, I will work all day and night because this country is waiting. GCOM took 21 and more days to even come to a decision for a recount. Now the recount has finished 2 days ago, since Sunday. 2 days have passed. What are they doing? They need to realize this country is sailing. This country is probably not just sailing, it's caught in a whirlwind and going down with each passing day. So I am going to call out the chairman and say, get on with it, Madam Chair. Step on the toes of your chairman and of your CEO and remind him he needs to move and move quickly.
Get the people business out of the way as quickly as possible. 225-8465, 225-8465. And you could also text us on 6222222. We received so many messages, Yoke, I can't read all of them, and we would have to try to fix that issue. But in the meantime, thank you for joining us here on Elections COVID-19 Watch. We have a few more moments, a few more minutes for some more calls. There's a caller online. Good afternoon, caller, you're on the air.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, sir.
I'd like to just say to that comment that person made that children in primary are assessed in grade 2 and grade 4, and every term they do an assessment, teachers do assessments on them. So it is possible to assess them and transfer them into a secondary school based upon how they were coming forward. What I could recommend in that area is that as that is done before the school term is open, those schools that they are placed can do some remedial work with them as they transfer into grade 7. As it relates to our country and our position, I am hoping and praying that Ms. Gladys Singh does the right thing. I would like to ask a question to both of you. What does the law say? What can the CEO do? Could he give that same report that he did in March 13th, or does the law say he has to make a report based upon the recount and present it to the commission? I do not know, so I'm asking. Thank you very much.
Very good, Yog. And I think with regards to the school, I would like to see a system. If we are using the system of past performance to assess that system, whoever the persons are that are doing assessment, that they have very strict protocols to ensure that one student is not given uh, um, an edge over the other one. So it has to be a very strict system if you're going to go that line. But that is a conversation, that's a debate uh, that needs to be had, and the experts would have to sit down and look at what could possibly go wrong with that. But however, we need to do something. That is at the end of the day. With regards to the other one, Yog, with the Kitlo and feel as to what his powers are with regards to what he can and cannot do, maybe you'd want to have a dab at that.
Yeah, sure. Just quickly to say, I know we're running down on time too, but just quickly to say that uh, the order specifically lays out the steps for the recount. The order specifically has that the matrices for the recount shall be tabulated by the Chief Elections Officer and shall be submitted in a report together with the summary of the observations report to the Commission. So it limits the CEO to use the recount of the 10 electoral districts. This is in, I think, paragraph 12 of the order, that it constrains the CEO to use the recount of the 10 electoral districts and submit a report of that to the Commission. And thereafter, it also asks or has, it allows the CARICOM scrutinizing team to submit a report which GCOM may include in their observations, recommendations, and conclusions, but not necessarily as affecting the declaration. Number 14 says, the Commission shall, after deliberating on the report of 11, determine whether it should request the CEO to use the data compiled in accordance with the election as the basis for the submission of a final report under Section 96. So it does constrain the CEO to work within the mandate of this order, and that is the recount. And then the Commission will then deliberate and ask for a final report from the CEO. There seems to be a little gray area. The caller is right, and I think the caller knows exactly where the gray area is in terms of the part I just read, whether the CEO can ask, whether the Commission can ignore the CEO's report now and say, okay, ignore this. But remember, at the end of the day, Section 96 has to be followed. And as we said at the top of the program, Leonard, there is no way you can erase the stark reality of Mingo's declaration versus what came out of the recount. There is no way they can erase that. That is gone. As far as I'm concerned, from a negative, positive perspective, that horse has bolted. And so they are now left and forced to look at these recounts. And this is why you would notice APNU AFC is trying to poke all the holes it can into the recount itself, that being the bottom line.
Absolutely, dear Yog. I think there's other callers. Yes. Good afternoon, caller. You're on the air.
Hello.
Yes. Good afternoon. You're on the air.
Hi. Good afternoon to Dr. Mahadeo and yourself, Mr. Gildarie.
Yes.
Actually, I would like to comment on us as Guyanese on the whole scenario that's going on with the election. I feel like whichever party goes into government, we really need to educate the population, because it doesn't matter which political party you're supporting. For us to watch a live rigging and deny that, it means we really do have some special people in Guyana. So I think we need to have a lot of educational programs to actually make us as Guyanese better people, because we're all making ourselves a fool by attacking each other when we have our politicians out there making their money, and we're the ones who is punishing as Guyanese. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and you're so right on that. We have to consistently ask ourselves, who is the enemy here? Who is it that we fight, and what is it that we're fighting for? Yog?
Yeah, indeed. And the caller is absolutely right. But my sister, I will say this to you. If somebody, how can you educate Mr. Mingo? How How can you educate the person who signed Mr. Mingo's declaration? I mean, you can educate someone who lacks education, but when people want to be purposefully mischievous, when persons want to, with impunity, challenge the law and break the law, then that's why I think in some cases, penalty, and that's why you have the laws. They have to face the full force of the law. But I agree, in terms of educating this population as to how fraud is possible, whether it is possible, and what can happen, that education needs to continue.
Absolutely. So there's another caller online. Good afternoon, caller. You're in the air.
Good afternoon, sir. Um, hello.
Yes, good afternoon. You're on the air. Just speak up a little, ma'am.
Yes, good afternoon, sir.
Yes.
I want this country. I want peace and love in our country, sir. And I need a little help from you all.
Absolutely. So you are gonna text 62222. And we're gonna take it from there.
Wait, sir.
Yes.
68.
6222.
No, it's a cell number.
Yeah, just text us your number and we're gonna get back to you.
Okay, I cannot text her.
Oh, you cannot?
Or just give us the number.
Give me the number fast.
68. 94. 47. 76.
That look like no, there's too much numbers here. 68, 94, 47, 76. That's too much numbers.
No. 68.
Mm-hmm.
94.
Mm-hmm.
47. 6.
6. Okay, got you. Thank you. We call you after this.
Okay, bye.
Thank you very much. Yog, so we are winding down. This evening, you have planned some things here. We're going to come back, maybe take a call or two. But this evening, room 592, very interesting debate is going to be there. I think it's going to be fire. You have Sanjeev Dattadin and a gentleman by the name of Henry Jeffrey, a former minister. One a lawyer, the other one a former minister. And that Henry Jeffrey has put out a proposal here which seems to be creating a lot of waves. I expect fire to be this evening in room 592. Two men who likes to argue. Sanjeev Dattadin is very strong in his opinion. I'm not sure how you and I are going to referee that, but what is it that we're expecting?
Look, Dr. Henry Jeffrey has been making some statements that says that Claudette Singh can decide she's not going to declare a winner, and she can just say to the Chancellor of the Judiciary, you form the government. All of those things, and of course, those people who wish to see this election kicked down the road, they are grabbing onto all of these offerings and making it, instead of an offering, they're casting it in stone and concrete. So we want to certainly have that discussion, because we want to have Dr. Jeffrey tell us, well, here is the basis, here is the argument. And of course, Mr. Dattadin, who, as we know, is well versed in a lot of these things, he went to the CCJ on constitutional matters with regards to the no confidence motion. And so he's well versed in these things. So Mr. Dattadin will be having that discussion in room 592 on these matters with Dr. Henry Jeffrey. So certainly it's going to be a fascinating, scintillating discussion tonight that will also be very educational, because Sanjeev puts the law very, very plainly. And of course, Dr. Jeffrey is no slouch in expressing his opinion and articulating that.
It's going to be fire this evening, 592, room 592 with Dr. Yog Mahadeo, myself on Kaito Radio 99.1, 99.5. I think we could squeeze in a couple more calls very quickly. Caller, you on the air. Good afternoon.
Yeah, you could please start back?
Yes. If you could call you back?
Yeah. 674-1572.
Was it?
674-1572.
All right, after this. Good. Bye-bye. Yeah. And so, elections, COVID-19 watch. We started a little late today, but it has been, I had a very good time, Yoga. We have connected, or people are becoming warmer. I think people are coming out now. There's a different sense in the air, Yoga, when it comes to people wanting better, talking a little more about what they want for this country. There's lots of energy there. Do you feel it, Yoga?
Yes, absolutely. And the best thing that I felt over over these recent times is our people are awakening and they are not allowing the liberal Kool-Aid to just dull their senses. A lot of persons on both sides of the divide, they know what's the truth, and they're no longer, just being cheerleaders and spouting the kind of things that their leaders want to spout. We all want to see this country move on. At the end of the day, Leonard, whether the APNU AFC concede today, tomorrow, June 16, whatever, the day will come when the government will change. The hands are going to change. And so we're optimistic from the perspective of this country has to move on. And the people have spoken and they will continue to speak.
Absolutely, dear. And so today happened to be 100 days since elections, and that is something again we should never ever uh, put ourselves through. We should never allow any politicians to put us through. We're going to be back with you this evening on room 592, 7:30 p.m. sharp. Lots of fireworks. I want to say thank you very much to our people out there who have joined us as far away as Toronto, New York. Lots of people in New York there, London as well, the UK, Norway, right across the Caribbean, and of course in our beautiful land of ours, right along these bank, East Coast, Berbice, Essequibo, if you're there, we checking in on you, Lake Waiaka, I think Lake Mainstay, the Waiaka area there, Essequibo Coast, the Pomeroon, we want to say hello to you folks, a good day. Diamond, we have some good numbers for it. And of course, if you're listening to us, Mr. McChan down in Prospect, a good day to you, sir. I understand that you tune in with your little radio every single day and you listen to Yog. I think you would criticize myself a lot because I sit on the fence, and that is okay. We're not the ones who are supposed to be the news. We just put the news out to the people there. So thank you very much, people. You brought tears to our eyes, although you might not see it many times with some of the words, some of the stories that we're hearing, and we love you very much for that. It's been 3 months that has been very tough, hard work sometimes, Yog. But I think we're turning the corner, the end of the tunnel. The light is at the end of the tunnel. So I want to say thank you very much to Dr. Yog Mahadeo, who has been putting himself out, dropping everything, dropping his family and everything, morning, noon, night. I think, Yog, we've been talking too much. It's almost as if we are good friends now. We should not be good friends. We should be at war with each other, but it's been very good with you. Thank you very much to the people in Guyana and wherever you are for joining us here. Elections, COVID-19 watch. Do have a pleasant rest of the day until we meet again this evening in room 592, 7:30 p.m. sharp. Goodbye.